1.5 DC 110 horsepower K9K. It seems that Renault without a 1.5 DC turbo diesel will be of no use to anyone. So Talisman can't do without it. Thanks to this working volume, customs duties are attractive, so most Talismans are imported with it. This engine is definitely reliable. With proper maintenance, it can last more than 500,000 kilometers. True, after driving from Europe at the 200,000 kilometers mark, it's still worth replacing the connecting rod bearings to calm things down. They can no longer be turned, but when removed, all the liners look heavily worn, literally worn out. Even if the EGR valve is disturbed, it will come to its senses after cleaning. Cleaning can be done before immediate problems with it, on the occasion of replacing the gasket under it. Replacing the gasket, 8,201,627,839 under the thermostat is sometimes required before the thermostat itself fails. If the message check injection system appears on the instrument panel and error DF1003 appears during diagnostics, it is associated with the differential pressure sensor. Then simply replace the broken tube that connects this sensor to the particulate filter. You need to look for it above the particulate filter, i.e. from the side of the engine shield. The required tube, 208744205R, costs $55 and will break in a few years anyway. Instead, you can use a reinforced heat-resistant tube of a suitable diameter. You cannot drive with this error. There will be serious problems with the particulate filter. 1.6 DC 130 horsepower R9M. 1.6 DC 160 horsepower R9M. The second most popular engine on the Talismans is a 1.6-liter turbo diesel. Moreover, there are twin turbocharged versions. This engine is more troublesome. You can expect troubles from the EGR cooler. It leaks through the gaskets or sometimes bursts. There is an antifreeze smell or the smell of exhaust gases. It burns out. A new cooler, 147357086R, costs about $550. The timing chain, 130C10990R, must be changed after 150,000 kilometers. The entire set today costs about $360. 1.7 DC, R9N 120 horsepower, 150 horsepower. Sometimes there are examples with a 1.7-liter turbo diesel. Such versions appeared in 2019. There is no reliable data on the reliability of this motor yet. This is a modification of the 1.6-liter engine, with which it shared a rather modest timing chain resource. 2.0 BlueDCi 160 horsepower, 200 horsepower M9R. Talisman with a 2-liter turbo diesel is very rare. These were released only in 2019. This is the good old M9R, the big brother of the R9M motor. There is little information about its reliability, but nothing bad seems to happen to it. The Renault Talisman was equipped with 3 turbo petrol engines. Such cars are very rare. There are literally 50 times fewer of them on sale than diesel Talismans. 1.3 Terrace H5H 160 horsepower. 1.6 Terrace M5M 150 horsepower, 200 horsepower. 1.8 Terrace M5P 224 horsepower. There is no objective data on the reliability of these engines. It is only known that during the warranty period their timing chain stretched and even jumped, and European long service intervals led to oil leaks. The situation with transmissions in Talismans is the same as in Megane 4. The manual transmission works without problems, but after a mileage of 250,000 kilometers you will have to worry about replacing the dual mass flywheel. And that's $500-$900 just for this part. DC4 6-speed robot. Talisman doesn't have any classic automatic machines at all. Instead, the 2-pedal versions have only preselective transmissions. The ones with double clutch. The 1.5-liter turbo diesel comes with a 6-speed preselective DC4. This is an adequate transmission. There are cases when it runs more than 300,000 kilometers without any problems and is not subject to major overhauls. True, with such a mileage you will have to replace the clutch, the cost of which is about $1,200. DW5 7-street preselective gearbox. DW6 6-street preselective gearbox. All other engines are equipped with wet preselective automatic transmissions. Often the clutch kit 30254818R barely lasts 200,000 kilometers. It wears out so much that slipping occurs. The clutch costs from $1,500, which is completely inhumane. These transmissions are also more sensitive to the condition of the oil, because clutch frictions dust right into it. If you change the oil every 60,000 kilometers in the filter, 152004740R. The oil is not at all expensive. Usually they fill it with non-original oil specially made for such transmissions. it has been noticed that any battery on Talismans lasts no more than 3 years. Moreover, give it either an improved wet battery, EFB, or a more expensive dry battery, AGM. The thing is that there are a lot of electronics for comfort, especially in rich versions. There is a start-stop system, so the generator, during predominantly urban use, cannot cope with normal battery charging, as on the Megane 4. Here too the main fan, 214819674R, 214813939R, begins to make noise and vibrate over time. Its axle does not have any bearings, it simply slides in bushings made of a special, but short-lived material. Depending on the engine, there are 2 versions of the fan. The original ones cost from $600 to $1,000. Replacements for $300. Alternatively, you can fill the fan axle bushing with lubricant. The Talisman pendant has its problems. These are the silent blocks of the front control arms. Nobody changes them along with the levers. They press in non-original ones. It's much cheaper. In general, the original silent blocks of levers last an average of 120,000 kilometers before deep cracks and significant play appear. The rear, 560,624, and front, 562A58, silent block cost $25 and $5, respectively. The original front stabilizer rods last about 70,000 kilometers. Nobody buys the original ones, 5461 82227R, for $100. Everyone chooses substitutes for $20. Rear shock absorbers, especially on a station wagon, which are used in a business-like manner, often have to be changed after a mileage of 150,000 kilometers. Original 562103768R, non-adjustable rear shock absorbers cost $360. A good replacement is 3 times cheaper. But if the shock absorber is adjustable, 562102044R, 562102295R, these come complete with a fully controlled chassis, then they have no substitutes, and prices, depending on the version, range from $400 to $700, closer to 200,000 kilometers. You will have to replace the front shock absorbers, 543020117R, $200 each, and wheel bearings, 402024Ya1A. Original hubs today cost more than $500, and good replacements cost $200. Support bearings 543258271R, $30 each. The Talisman's rear suspension is always semi-independent. In the Initial Paris configuration, the rear wheels are deflected at a slight angle to increase maneuverability. For this purpose, an actuator and 2 steering rods are installed on the beam. So far there are no problems with this system. True fans of the Renault Talisman know that all of these cars from the factory do not have ideal body clearances. They came off the assembly line with these. All this can be adjusted. It happens that the corners of the front bumper protrude under the headlights, and after pressing they fall into place. But not for long. In some cases, loose bumper mounting guides are to blame. Their halves are glued together by soldering at the factory. These soldering points are detached. This problem can be repaired with ordinary glue. Of course, the bumper will have to be removed. The headlights of the Talisman have not yet been noticed in the burnout of the daytime running lights in themselves and in the eyelashes. Unlike Megane and Scenic in the 4th generation, these are separate elements. The DRL LEDs have not yet burned out here. However, there are cases when the headlights, or more often, the eyelashes fog up. This fogging threatens the LED driver. It will corrode and fail over time. Sometimes the driver can be repaired by cleaning and soldering. If the eyelashes fog up, then most likely there is a gap between the body and the lampshade. It can be sealed. If the crack is on the lampshade itself, then gluing an armor film can help. By the way, eyelashes easily crack due to the lightest blows to them. The gas filler door sometimes starts hanging crookedly when open. In its hinge, the axle simply slides down. It needs to be pushed into place, i.e. up. To do this, you need to remove this entire hatch along with its liner. It's not difficult. Most of the Talismans were purchased and brought in the Universal Grand Tour version. The trunk lid of such cars, although plastic, still sags. This is some kind of hereditary disease of Renault. We have already talked about it in the reviews of Megane 4 and Grand Scenic 4. The door sags, sometimes skewed, and begins to rub off the paint in the opening and on the edge of the trunk. Fortunately, this disgrace is adjustable. The adjusting screws become accessible after removing the spoiler and trim around the perimeter of the rear window. There is a problem with the trunk curtain. If you unfold it entirely, it will no longer roll back and tighten. The reason is that its end on the winding side is torn away from the drum. If it comes off, you will have to disassemble the curtain body to re-glue it. The niche for the spare tire on this Renault is made of plastic and simply glued to the body reinforcement. Practice shows that between the plastic and the metal there may be a gap through which water sprayed by the wheels penetrates into the trunk, or more precisely into the niche for the spare tire. Applying sealant along the edge of the plastic insert helps solve this problem. If you have a Talisman station wagon freshly imported from Europe, then don't be surprised if the rear windshield washer soon stops working. The fact is that in the water supply tube to it, right behind the headliner above the trunk, there is a small connector, a green plastic insert. Just get to it, remove it and clean it. This connector becomes clogged with a tablet of detergent dissolved in the windshield washer reservoir. Such funds are often used in Europe. By the way, if cleaning in this place does not help, then get to another similar bushing. You will find it in the arch of the front right wheel. Quite often on Talismans the armrest cover lock does not work, and, it seems, all cars will go through this, because the spring in the lid lock breaks. This spring holds the button unlock in the pressed position. To repair the lock, you need to disassemble the armrest cover. By the way, to do this, start disassembling this box from its backside, remove its back panel, and then unscrew the screws located there, moving towards the lock in the armrest cover. There you will find a mechanism spring. Unfortunately, its plastic holders will break off. There is no universal recipe for how to secure a spring. This problem must be solved creatively with whatever is at hand. And if the armrest cover does not seem to fit into place, i.e. presses into place with a slight knock, then open it and see if both of its rubber stop dampers are there. Their tips often break off. Instead, you can insert stops from Lada external handles, 21,230,610,545,400, into the holes. Sometimes these cars experience vibrations in the automatic transmission selector. The selector is connected to the transmission by a cable, which transmits vibrations. And the vibrations arise due to the fact that there is a loose weight down there on the cable connected to the transmission. It is put directly on the cable and secured with a core. Naturally, one point of pressure on the cable is not a reliable solution, but it's easy to correct this drawback. You want to add more points with a core, or just squeeze this weight. But without fanaticism, do not pinch the cable. To get to the cable, you need to remove the front part of the thermal shield on the bottom. The cable will go forward to the transmission to the left of the muffler. The cable is fitted with an additional shirt with ribs. Its cross-section resembles a star. You can also approach this cable from above. It is located directly under the battery platform. And if the car has a manual transmission, then a muffled ringing and low-frequency vibrations appear under the lever. They're the guide plastic bushings through which the cables pass brake. Here too, you will have to look for a creative solution. Either tighten and seal the bushings with clamps, or fill them with thick lubricant. Talisman, like Megan's in the 4th generation, has advanced our linked multimedia systems. Today they are quite simply flashed to open all hidden functions, disable start-stop, upload fresh maps of non-European countries, and simply update the software. By the way, multimedia systems that have been bricked due to unsuccessful firmware are now revived without any problems. There are specialists. Moreover, there are no problems to upgrade the car, i.e. replace the simpler R-Link with a small horizontal display with the most advanced one with a large vertical display.